I think the very beginning step is ensuring that the materials that you're receiving are of good quality. Good in equals good out. And so having a good receiving process to ensure that those products, those commodities that you're receiving are in good condition and meet the spec that you're requiring.
Welcome to the Poultry Podcast Show, brought to you by Wisenetics. I'm Doug Corver, dedicated to bringing you the latest insights and discussion in the poultry industry. Get ready to expand your knowledge and stay ahead with today's episode. If you find this interview interesting, please let us know by visiting our website at wisenetics.com. Our guest today is Shawn Bradshaw, who's a dedicated professional working in the agribusiness and feed milling industries. He began his career at NC State University, where he became the manager in 2012, earning a certificate in feed milling in 2013. Shawn graduated from NC State Agricultural Institute in 2017 with an Associate of Applied Science in Agribusiness Management, and further advanced his education by obtaining a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Education from North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University in 2019. In 2022, Shawn earned his Master of Business Administration with a concentration in Supply Chain Management, equipping him with vital skills in the agricultural industry. He's held key roles, including lecturing at Edgecombe Community College in agricultural education and as a key account manager at Kemin from 2021 to 2024. Currently, Shawn is the product application manager at Adisseo, where he continues to drive innovation and success in the industry. Welcome to the Poultry Podcast Show, Shawn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's quite a background. It's an interesting training progression. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into feed milling and the steps maybe through your education to where you are now?
Sure. I think it's a pretty dynamic way to get into the industry. I have a farming background, grew up on a farm that was really close to an urban area, so that now it's pretty much taken over by houses, and farming wasn't going to be something that I did, but I liked staying close to my roots. I started out in the maintenance field and worked there for a few years and found this opportunity at NC State and actually interviewed for the feed mill and the dairy farm kind of simultaneously, and really received offers from both. And I chose the feed mill just because at the time it seemed cleaner. It was a newer facility. My background was in beef cows, but I liked the idea of the feed mill, and I potentially saw myself growing into that role a lot more. So I started as a technician at the University feed mill and moved up into the manager's seat after a few years when the current manager retired. And while I was there, just kept consuming knowledge. Started with a certificate and just set those milestones and things that I could very easily achieve while working. And so that's why I went from a certificate to an associate's degree to a bachelor's, and just kept building on those milestones so that I could work and receive an education at the same time while I was there, because it was subsidized by the university. So that was kind of my main reasoning for tagging on the education. And I knew that would help in the field that I was in.
So it really was a matter of an opportunity that came up and the interest that you developed over time. And
a worldwide leader in animal nutrition, Adisseo's portfolio of products includes methionine, the full range of vitamins, enzymes, organic selenium, probiotics, mycotoxin management strategies, and palatability products. With such a diverse offering, Adisseo supports its customers with a broad range of expertise, tools, and services to help them maintain a competitive advantage. Adisseo, fueling predictable profits. To learn more, visit Adisseo at www.adisseo.com.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar, but can you give us an overview of the basic process of turning raw materials into a finished product going out to a farm?
I think the very beginning step is ensuring that the materials that you're receiving are of good quality. Good in equals good out. And so having a good receiving process to ensure that those products, those commodities that you're receiving are in good condition and meet the spec that you're requiring. And then from there, it's a matter of milling those ingredients, bringing them together, and then whether or not you pellet or if it's a meal or a mash feed, sending it out to the farm, whether it's in bags or bulk. It's probably a very easy way to explain it.
Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts, particularly if you go from grinding and steam conditioning and or grinding and mixing and steam conditioning and pelleting and maybe post-pellet liquid application. There's a lot of moving parts, literally and figuratively. So how do you keep it all running smoothly?
To keep everything running smoothly, it's my maintenance background. It's the backbone of everything that I do, but it's having a strong maintenance program and having qualified, trained individuals conducting that maintenance and having a built out program so that everybody follows and keeps that equipment running top notch. I was just having a conversation with somebody, and things don't break down when you expect them to or when they're most convenient for us. They're going to break down at 2:00 in the morning when you have one or two guys in the meal, and now everybody's getting phone calls. So having that backbone of maintenance and that program is vital.
Are there some particular spots that are more prone to those kinds of issues?
So I think it really depends on what your operation is. If it's just a mash feed mill, then obviously grinding and mixing are probably your two biggest components. So definitely focusing in on those big pieces of equipment, the hammer mill or the roller mill or the mixer. If it's pelleting, certainly adding in the pellet mills and then the subsequent equipment following that, whether it's a coder or your coolers. But certainly as the equipment gets more complicated, those are generally the pieces of equipment that you probably want to hone in the most on, because that's where you have the biggest chance of things failing.
So if you're designing a preventative maintenance program from scratch, a new feed mill, what are some of the things that you pay attention to? What milestones do you look for, or are there particular schedules that you follow?
If I was designing a brand new program, I think I would be really close with my suppliers of equipment, making sure that I had all the operators manuals, and I know most of that's online now. And so when I send out manuals for the equipment that we install or have installed, I have a little packet that I put together that goes out with each one of our systems so that the person that's going to be working on it at the mill has a really good idea of what is required. And so taking that and moving it into a program, that's probably where I would start, is having all my manuals for all of my equipment. And then from there, going through each one of them and setting schedules based off of that manufacturer's spec and based off the hours that I know that we're going to be running, and work a schedule and tie in as many items that you can at that same time so that you're not having to do repetitive labor at different times.
Yeah, and making sure that downtime is minimized.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, is we're trying to reduce downtime and not add extra work or extra labor hours to our budget at the end of the week.
Mm-hmm. So again, really complicated systems in there. There's a lot of different systems. Is there a role for artificial intelligence in helping you manage that preventative maintenance program?
I think it will be. I think, along with some of the other roles that AI will take over, but managing that program, because it will be, I view AI as the new decision maker. So it can look out into the facility, see what's going on with different sensors and different inputs that it'll have, and then be able to give you a real-time view of what needs to be done to service that equipment that's being used.
So the sensors that you're talking about, is that something that can be added retroactively, or does it need to be put in a brand new mill?
Potentially. I think we're kind of, I think we might be getting outside of kind of my purview, but just being on the outside looking in, I definitely think, one, most of the modern automation systems already have these inputs in place. But certainly, if they're the older locations that are moving toward the newer PLCs, those types of inputs, I think they can be added retroactively.
AB Vista, an innovative animal nutrition company offering intelligent solutions for the poultry industry. The combination of innovative products, technical expertise, and cutting-edge services provide the ideal tools to drive poultry production. To learn more about AB Vista tools, check abvista.com.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Poultry Podcast Show presented by Wisenetics, please remember to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. You can also set the notifications to on from our channel so you don't miss any other upcoming episodes. And as always, please feel free to leave us your comments at any time. Your feedback is important to us. Shawn, what are some of the other ways that you see artificial intelligence being used in modern feed mills?
So that's where I think it's really going to be exciting over the next few years. And certainly there's going to be a cost to play. There's going to be early adopters because all this comes at a cost, and what is that cost is going to be determined. But I think there's some really exciting components that are around the feed mill, such as feed haul, inventory, on farm, and getting that feedback to the mill so that they're then able to plan their production based on real-time information of what's in the field and minimize changeovers. And then the NIR technology that's already out there that's in line, and now allowing that AI to make changes batch to batch, and so that every batch coming out of the mixer is uniform and meets that nutritionist standard. So
a lot more integration up and down the supply chain.
I think that's where it's going to be its biggest role. And again, I've said this, in the past, we might not even know where it will take us or what the role will be just yet. I think it's still new enough that we have an idea of kind of what we want, but we might not even see what the potential is.
You really want to avoid that dreaded 4:30 on Friday afternoon phone call saying my feed bin's empty. So we talked about technology, and of course that's important and probably become more important going forward. But what about people? Why is it important to train staff not only for what they're doing now, but also for the future?
I think that's a great question. And I think it's starting to be more and more highlighted as we get more and more specialized. That's the need for training these individuals and having people ready to accept these new roles that are going to be out there soon. It's so we don't have a backlog and we're not playing catch up is the reason to continuously train and train for that next step. We have an aging population of mill managers and mill staff that have a very large institutional-based knowledge, so they know their facilities in and out. And all right, what's next? Who's the next people to take the reins and bring these facilities into the next generation? And that's where that training, that continuous training, and maybe even higher level of training come into play, is so we just don't get behind and don't have that downtime when these older people are retiring.
So if somebody's interested in working in the feed milling industry, a young person that's maybe graduating high school and thinking about college or other paths, what are some things that they should keep in mind? What are some opportunities that they should look for or training they should get?
I think there's a huge amount of resources that we have out there now. AFIA, Kansas State, NC State, Auburn, these universities have partnered together and put out a lot of good resources and, have classes that are online. So just about anybody can take them. Certainly, my background at NC State, they have a great program there. K-State has their legacy program that they've got. Auburn's continuously, bringing more to the table with what they're doing. There seems to be more and more interest at the university level with new programs and different universities trying to bring in that role and understanding of feed milling. So I'm certainly forgetting some just because I'm on the spot right now, but there's always the university avenue. There's your community colleges that are out there, and certainly the straight to work, working in the feed mill and learning kind of the way I did. But it's not just feed milling knowledge, it's engineering knowledge, it's other aspects, electrical controls. There's all these different aspects of feed milling that go into that meal that, a person can go out and kind of pick and choose what module they're interested in learning and bring that to the meal and I think be very successful.
So you mentioned that many mills or mills are losing people as they reach retirement age that have that huge amount of experience and institutional knowledge. But it sounds like replacing people like that is not just as simple as taking one person, getting one new person, but maybe a team of people with specialized skills.
Correct. I think, the older generation, there's a lot of people that started in receiving and worked their way up. And so they learned the entire facility. And so to think that you can bring somebody fresh out of school or just fresh off the street into the facility and then be put in a position to succeed, I don't think it's fair to that person or fair to the location. It's going to take time. And whether or not it's that singular person or if it's multiple people having to come in and backfill, that's to be determined. But certainly it's getting started and bringing people and trying to attract that higher caliber of person or that person that wants to build a career in the feed mill.
So, it takes a group of specialized people to run a feed mill well. There's more and more high tech and expensive equipment that can be installed in the feed mill. Do you think that's putting pressure to have larger and larger capacity feed mills?
So I don't necessarily. I think the cost of equipment is potentially continuing to drive the reason to have larger capacity feed mills. You can spread that cost over many more tons. And then with vertical integration, you have the opportunity to service many more farms in that area. And so I think it's the chicken or the egg in that scenario, which came first. But it's certainly, it seems to be the way everything is going is a larger centralized location for feed and very large numbers of tons that are being produced. Who knows if that will continue? I mean, I think if you look at trends, potentially that's where we're going to continue to head is these large facilities. But then, at the same time, it's as we increase the size of this equipment, the typical maintenance staff that you have of one or two people, are they able to keep up with the PMs and the maintenance on this equipment with just the sheer size, or do we have the processes in place to allow them to work on this equipment, and can they handle it and service it? Or do we need to have kind of a subsidiary company come in and help with maintenance and kind of add to that team that we might have at the feed mill?
Are there any other challenges that you see the feed industry or the feed milling industry facing that are on the horizon?
I think there's always challenges within a feed mill. It just depends on the day of what those challenges are. Certainly, there's always going to be costs. There's always going to be ingredient costs. There's always going to be trucking. And then there's always regulations. I think some of the regulations that we're out here and having to meet is certainly a big challenge that's on the horizon. As we have a population that continues to get further and further from their food source, I think that's going to continue to make regulations that much more impactful on the feed mill. Because do we have a good understanding of what we're being asked to do?
Yeah, so there's another area of specialization within that feed mill team.
Yep.
It's time for our famous three.
At Barnes, we're more than just another feed additive company. We are driven by science, innovation, and an understanding of the challenges you face in the ever-changing world of animal agriculture. We are your trusted partner for new-to-market natural alternative to choline chloride, Choline Plus FC, as well as enzymes, prebiotics, probiotics, macro minerals. To learn more about our product offering, visit barnes-ne.com/animal nutrition. Together, there's always a better solution.
Well, Shawn, that was a lot of fun. Before we go, though, I've got a few more questions for you. What's your favorite poultry or agriculture-related book or resource? What's your go-to?
My go-to is probably going to be feed technology. I was introduced to it when I was at NC State, and it is, I think, the first feed milling book that really was an all-encompassing source of information for feed milling. I think everybody should have a subscription to it if they're in the feed industry. Just as a quick reference, there's a lot of information online now, but to me, that's a really a go-to book that somebody should have.
How about outside of agriculture? Your favorite book or resource?
Outside of agriculture, so I'm kind of a sci-fi person, and I've really been hooked on Murderbot, the Murderbot Diaries. Mm-hmm. And I know Apple TV just made a series about it, but I think I've gone through all of those books in the last month recently, and they were a good read. I did a lot of the audio books for them, okay. And so when I'm traveling and driving, I can just put them on. It's an easy listen. I've kind of gotten out of the podcast lately. Just it seems like it's always the same topics here and there, but
except for this one.
Except for this one, and we might want to peel that one back.
No, that's great. And then finally, we maybe touched on this a little bit, but what do you think is the most important characteristic for a person to have in order to be successful in the feed milling industry?
I think that's probably simple. I think it's curiosity. I think if you're curious about the job that you're doing, asking questions, and being in an environment where you can ask those questions and ask why are we doing this? What is the impacts of it? And along that line of thought, I think somebody can be very successful. I think that's curiosity.
Well, Shawn, thanks very much for joining us today on the Poultry Podcast Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Maybe we can talk again in the future.
That'd be great.
That concludes another episode of the Poultry Podcast Show presented by Wisenetics. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to stay updated on future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's interview, please leave us a review. Your feedback is always important to us. You can also visit our website at wisenetics.com and learn more about all of our podcast segments for poultry, swine, dairy, beef, feed mill, crops, and even pet food. I'm Doug Corver, and I'll see you next time on the Poultry Podcast Show.